Hello, everyone, and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and this is Joelle Jobson. And today's topic is Microsoft Viva Connections. Joelle will be showing you how to set that up and get it working, and it doesn't require PowerShell anymore. So here's the stinger. Let's get on with it.
All right. Hello, everybody. And we're going to be talking about Viva Connections today. So, if you were with us 2 years ago, Laura actually dove into Viva Connections and she kind of showed how like the process of getting it installed 2 years ago, which was long and arduous, and it required a lot of PowerShell. So it required you to go out and create a script and put stuff in that script and run that script and then upload that app, and it was just quite a process, especially for somebody who may or may not have access to PowerShell or may not really be super comfortable with PowerShell. So we are back now because all of that has changed and it's all available to be configured in the browser, so you no longer have to rely on PowerShell to do so. So today we're going to dive into Viva Connections. We'll kind of start again from the top where we just talk about what Viva Connections is. And then we'll dive into the components that you need to set up and configure prior to launching this. And there is a whole new kind of concept on the I'm seeing a volume complaint, so I'll try to push my mic closer. Hopefully, I'm not sure if that will help. But there is a whole concept now around a dashboard. That is, I don't think that is something that existed in our 2 years ago, or wasn't something that was required as a part of it yet. So we'll go into the dashboard and how to configure that and the different like options you have for that as well. So without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so Viva Connections as an overview. So like, I like to kind of. I'm one of those people like I'm not great with like the fun business language, that gets utilized a lot. And I like to go like, okay, well, yep, I know, I see all these buzzwords, I like that, but what is it really? Like, what is Viva Connections really? Like as a person who has to like work on intranets or use intranets, like what does it really do? And I think at this point, obviously it may continue to grow, but at this point, what is it really like? Very at the like too long didn't read level. It is a way to bring your intranet into Microsoft Teams seamlessly. Like that's kind of like the main thing that it does. Again, it has some other pieces to that, but like the main kind of core concept is that it is taking your intranet and kind of surfacing it like seamlessly into Microsoft Teams. Obviously, you could do things like have like a web page tab that like a website tab that like shows your intranet or whatever, but this is a lot more seamless than that, and it's kind of meant to be easier for the users, so that way when they're in Teams every day, they still have exposure to that beautiful intranet homepage that you've created. So that's really kind of like the main core reason that Viva Connections exists. It is something that like in my own work, like I think initially because of the install and like how complex it wasn't something that I was like immediately like, oh, you need to do this as a part of your intranet. But now as things have gotten easier, I'm kind of putting it on my list of things that I would like not require, but I would recommend a customer, especially if they're using Teams. Like some of my customers don't, but especially if a customer uses Teams, it is something that I'm going to go ahead and say like, okay, as a part of your intranet project, when you're building out your intranet, this needs to be a part of that as well. It may not be in like phase one, but in like at least you need to kind of think about it and have it as a part of maybe a later phase at the very least. So besides that, besides kind of surfacing and the visibility in Teams, it is a curation of content where you're basically allowed to create content that gives users quick access to things, a lot of stuff in Teams. So it's like things like data or tasks, news, resources, things like that. So that's really, and we'll talk more about that, but that's really kind of where the dashboard comes in. Because the dashboard is really where we're going to be able to kind of create a little bit of a custom experience It may seem kind of like when I first started looking at the dashboard, you're kind of like, well, is this really that much better at this point than just like doing quick links or something? But there are a couple of features with it that are, a little bit more robust than what you could do just in like the web parts that are inside of a regular SharePoint page. And we'll talk about that. And then also there's the third thing is it's all built on top of existing features. So whether it be the dashboard or whether it be like the feed app, the feed web part, sorry, that we'll talk about too. That's all pulling from like SharePoint content, SharePoint news, Teams, obviously, and then even Yammer as well if you're utilizing Yammer as an organization. So let's go ahead and move forward. And I'm going to try to keep my eye on the let's see. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep my eye on like questions there. So, all right. So the first part of your setup. So I've already set up in the environment that I use for testing and stuff like that. I have already set it up. I have been having like just to be like full disclosure, I've been having some issues with SharePoint, and like just in the last like few weeks, I've just been having a lot of like problems with like weird connectivity issues and timeouts and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But with like my PC, but I wanted to go ahead and get it set up first, and that way, in case there was any issues, it didn't stop us. But I'm going to go through exactly what I did and show you like the different areas and stuff like that, so that way it's a little bit more clear. So the first step is you have to have a home site. So if you set up a home site that also was a PowerShell script, it was a simple one, but it was a PowerShell script in the past. It is no longer. You can actually do it directly in the SharePoint Admin Center. So I'll show you that. So that's like step number one is you have to have your hub or whatever your main site for your intranet is. It has to be designated as a home site in the settings. Once you do that, which I'll show in a minute, then you also you'll go to your home site, whatever site you set, and you will configure the global navigation. So you also have to configure global navigation. The global navigation can pull from that, like if that home site was also a hub site, you can pull from the hub navigation, or if it wasn't a hub site, it can pull just directly from the site navigation, the actual site navigation on that site. So you have those two options, and you need to configure that as well prior to anything with Viva Connections. And then the third thing that you need to do in SharePoint is create the dashboard. So the dashboard is it's just another page in your SharePoint site that gets created, but it has like a special format where you'll be able to add the cards, like I think that's what they call them technically, the cards and the different things that you want to show in that dashboard. You'll create that and configure that from within the home site. So I'll show you that too. And then the other thing that you'll have to do, and this is not like in SharePoint, but just kind of as a side, what you need to have before you go into Teams to kind of get Viva Connections up and running, is you will want to have a color icon. So this is just like a colorful icon that represents your intranet. And that would need to be a 192 by 192, and it needs to be a PNG. They're very specific with these about the size. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then the little outline icon. So the outline icon is actually what's going to eventually show like in the Teams app bar. When you pin your Viva Connections app usually we do it at the top, that little icon that's going to show. So that's the outline icon. So usually it's just going to be like a dark background with or a clear background with like an outline on there. So you want to just make sure that's only 32 by 32, so very small. So you want to make sure that you have those two things on hand, ready to go when you're going to set up the Viva Connections app. Another thing that you can have is if you do have like a company color, like if you have a color like a specific hex code, they will also just give you some of the default colors that they have in there that you can choose from. But you just definitely want to have an idea of what color, the main color that you want to use for the app as well. So let's take a look at doing a couple of those things and where that all is. All right, so let me go ahead. I'm going to jump over to my site here, and I'm going to go, the first is in the SharePoint Admin Center, so I already have that open. Again, if you see weirdness with my connectivity, that's just what I mentioned earlier. But that's why I tried to have some of this stuff open ahead of time. So right here in the SharePoint Admin Center, I'm going to go over to Settings. This is really cool because the home site, again, used to be a PowerShell script we had to run. And so I'll give it a second to load there. Sometimes if I hit refresh, it goes a little faster. Yeah, and this is just kind of like some of the weirdness I'm seeing. And see, the interesting thing is this is only if I've only seen this in the Microsoft world. I'm not seeing this in other websites. It's kind of strange. But anyway, so here we have home site. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then I already have a home site set up. So I could obviously remove that and add a new one. But if I didn't have my home site set up, what I would see here is just a bar, like a field that's looking for me to input the URL. So you'll need the URL for your whatever is going to be your home site. Mine is called Hub. Very unique there. And then I just copied that URL and I pasted it into the field that was here, and then it would show up like this. So that would basically be all you have to do to set your home site. And this is going to open up the next step, which is to go ahead and configure global navigation. So once I have that in there, I would hit save and then close this out. And then I could go back over to what the site that is my home site. So this is my home site. So from here, what I want to do next, if you're not familiar with the global navigation, like if you haven't seen that in some of our other videos, that is this SharePoint, like the SharePoint app bar that's been added. It was added last year. This right here, if you do not have like a home site and global navigation, this little home icon is going to bring you to the SharePoint start page or SharePoint homepage. Like I've heard it called different things. But that's like this special, like this page that they create here that's just got like news and things like that. It's kind of has like a roll up of news that gets automatically created. So that's what that little home icon is gonna go to by default. But once you have you've set up global navigation, and to do that, we go to the site actions gear from the home site, and we go to global navigation. And then you would do enable global navigation. You can load a logo in here. If you'd like to have like a different logo from that little home icon, we can put that in there. I think this one is also probably, let's see, it's not popping up here, but I think this one's pretty close to like that 32 by 32 as well. And then whatever title you would want for that. So I'm just going to change that to be the hub. And then the navigation source. So if you want it to, like if your home site is also a hub site, which is very common, then you can just leave it as hub or global navigation. And what that means is that hub navigation that you've already created, that's already out there, that's what will pull in as your global navigation. But if for whatever reason your home site is not a hub and you want the home site navigation to show as the global navigation, then you would just do that. And what it means by that is that's just the local site navigation. So in case you don't know, I'm sure a lot of you do, then you have like kind of 3 levels of navigation. You have local site navigation, so like in a communication site that's going to run horizontal across the top. In a team site that's going to run on the quick launch on the left-hand side, so that's like one level of navigation. The next level up from that in navigation is the hub navigation, which runs typically at the top. And that's going to be like above that. And it's going to run across all sites that are connected to the hub. And then that third level of navigation is the global, which is the one that shows in the SharePoint app bar. So in this site, we are actually setting it to be the hub navigation. So we're taking it from there and then hit save. And now if I was to like click on this bar here, I'm going to see this navigation, that same navigation that I saw here. And then this is the hub navigation I'm also going to see here. And the reason for that is that this is actually going to, when we set up Viva Connections, this navigation is going to get pulled into Teams. And that's why it needs to be set up beforehand. All right. Let's see. Okay, so I guess my screen is blurry. All right. All right. Well, we're doing the best we can, guys. All right. So we go ahead and go over to show you the next step. So the next step after you set up global navigation is to set up your dashboard. So that's another thing that you have to do before going over into Teams and doing anything in Teams. So to do that, once you have a home site, once your site is the home site, you're going to also see this thing down here that says Manage Viva Connections. So I would go ahead and click that. And then I already have a dashboard. So it says View Dashboard. But what this would say would be Create Dashboard. So you would just click that button. And what it does, just behind the scenes technically, is it just creates another page in your site pages library called Dashboard. And then it just has a kind of like a specific template that it's using to create that page. So you can either get to that dashboard by coming here, once you create it, you can either get to it by coming here and going to View Dashboard, or if you needed to, you can get to it from site pages as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click View Dashboard.
So Joelle, can you hear me? So
yes.
the purpose of the dashboard is for managing Viva Connections? I noticed that there was a dashboard thing in there before, but didn't realize what it was for.
Yeah, so it is actually it's almost like a web part in a way. It is a way to surface like different cards that have different functionalities, and we're going to talk about like the different cards that you could add. But it's like links to things. A lot of it is around like Teams applications, so like things like shifts and to do, and like it has these little widgets, I guess, web parts, if you will, or cards, whatever you like want to call them. I think technically they're probably cards, but you can add those to this dashboard, and then this dashboard can be a web part on your homepage. It can also be something that's accessible in the Teams app as well. So they can like see this same little widget in the Teams app when they're on their phone, like on the mobile app. They can get to this. So this is not for managing Viva Connections. No, it's actually something you have to create that is a thing that your user will use. So it's like a little place to kind of do different work and get to different like applications and things like that.
Can you zoom in on your browser a notch? That just might help with because the bandwidth is going through. Yeah. I'm the one broadcasting and you're the one sharing your screen, so it's like going through your computer and my computer, so it's a little fuzzy, but yeah, improving and I think that it doesn't really matter if we can read necessarily all the words on your screen. It's mostly the concepts that you're talking about that so it seems fine.
Yeah, I know it's one of those things. But yeah, so the dashboard, I'm going to come back and actually go through like all the different cards. But essentially you would have, if I put this in edit mode, when you first create it, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. And it's going to look like a mobile phone essentially. And then you're going to have, it's almost like adding web parts into a section, right? You're going to have a little add button, and then you'll be able to see this, which looks very familiar when we're creating pages. Only these are specific to the dashboard of Viva Connections. And then you could add these different cards to the dashboard, just depending on what you want to show. And that's one of the other things that you kind of want to do, prior to going through this process is kind of take a look at the dashboard and the examples of the dashboard. I'll go through all of the cards in a minute. But just kind of have an idea of what you would want to surface here. Like maybe it's, if you use shifts, if your users are using approvals, if they're using to do, like kind of surfacing some of that stuff might be helpful. Or even just having things like links to things. Obviously, I know we can do that with quick links. There are obviously adaptive cards, which we'll talk a little bit about, which are definitely a developer thing, by the way. So that's not something that we would do as like power users, but it is, an option that if you are a developer, a SharePoint developer, that's definitely worth looking into, because you could do some really cool stuff with adaptive cards in here as well. Like have like, little like, wizards and forms that pop up right here, and like they can submit data right here within the dashboard and it goes somewhere. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do with those. But you want to have some, like I said, we're going to go through what's available, and then you want to take that information and kind of have some idea what you would want to put in the dashboard. And you can keep it pretty simple to begin with. You can use like some of the out of the box like options, and then you can kind of grow that and continue to edit it over time. It does not have to be finished in order to launch Viva Connections. You just have to have something there because it requires it. And then I'm going to go ahead for now. I'm going to leave this open. We'll come back to it because, again, like I said, I'm going to go through the cards. But for now, what I would do is once I had that the way I would want it, then I would go ahead and click republish. And then that would be kind of ready. So at that point, if I had set my home site, if I had configured my global navigation, I've created the dashboard, and I have my logos and my color, then I am basically ready to then install into Teams. Now with Teams, you just want to be like I mentioned, if you're just launching your intranet in SharePoint, you want to just make sure that you kind of do this next step. You want to kind of coincide that with like your launch of your intranet, because you wouldn't want to like launch in Viva Connections before you've actually launched your intranet. So just keep that in mind. It might be something that you want to do like a little bit after you've launched your intranet. Like once your intranet's launched, then you can be like, hey, now it's in Teams too. Just something to kind of think about. Keep in mind, because the next part we're going to do is going to make it live for your users. So let's go back over to the slides and we'll talk about that. So everything else for the setup is going to now take place in the Teams Admin Center. So you need to have access to that. The first thing you're going to do is there is a built-in Viva Connections app. So that is just like in the Teams Admin Center, there's an app called Viva Connections. You are going to find that app and then you're going to enable it. So there's a little toggle that'll allow you to enable it. And then once you enable it, you're going to customize it. So this is where you're going to like change the name to be whatever the name of your intranet or your hub is. You're going to change the name. You're going to upload those logos. You're going to put in a color. Like you're going to do all of that stuff in that customization screen. So just got to keep that in mind that you are customizing it. So like when I go in here to search for it, I've actually already customized mine, so mine's just called the hub. But it would have been called Viva Connections if I was doing this from the beginning. So the last part of it, I'll show you that. And then the last part of it is that you have to update your global policy for apps inside of Teams. And with that policy, what you want to do is two things. Is you want to have this app installed for all your users that are using Teams by default. So that way they don't have to go out there and like find it themselves and add it. You want it installed by default. And then what you also want to do to make sure that they can find it and see it is you want to pin it to the top of the Teams app bar. So you want to do both of those things. Make sure that it's installed by default and then pin it to the top so that they can easily access it. So let's go over to here. We're going to go to the Teams Admin Center. So in the Teams Admin Center, the first screen I want to go to is Manage Apps here. And then, let's see, I'll refresh. Again, this is probably where I'm going to have some weird connectivity stuff, but hopefully that. And then you would search for, in your search here, you would search for Viva. And then you would look for Viva Connections. So mine, I've already changed the name, so it's not called Viva anymore. It's called is it called our hub or the hub? I think it's the hub. The hub. And again, that's just my company's name for it. I've already updated the icons and all that kind of stuff. So this would be Viva Connections. I would just click on it. And then from here, I would do the little toggle to make it allowed. So I think it's by default, it's disabled. So you just, in order to set this up, you just have to make sure it's allowed. So then once you do that, then the next thing you would do is to customize it. And so to customize it, we're going to go right here where it says customizable, it has the little pencil icon. We're going to click edit. Here I would change the name. The name would be whatever my intranet's name is, whatever we're calling that. And then I could do like a description if I wanted to. And then down here, this is where I would go ahead and upload my color icon and then my outline icon. So these are the two icons. Again, the outline icon is going to be the one that shows in that Teams app bar. So just keep that in mind. Whereas the color icon, that I think that really where that shows up is like in the, if somebody's searching apps, it's going to show up there. But the outline icon is actually what's going to show on the app bar. So that's like kind of the important one. And then whatever accent color, if you want to have an accent color for Viva Connections that matches your brand, you can enter the hex code here, and then or you can just choose from one of the colors that they have available. And then basically you just hit apply, and that's pretty much it for that. So now we have allowed the Viva Connections app. We've changed the name to our own intranet name. We've added our icons in, our logos and icons. And now what we need to do is change the policy. So here what we're going to do is we're going to go to Setup Policies. And then here is Global. That's the policy because we want Viva Connections is an intranet thing. So it's for all our employees. So we want to go ahead and do Global. And then there's two things we want to do. We want to have it as an installed app. So you would do add apps. Now remember, you've renamed it by this point. So you wouldn't be searching for Viva Connections anymore. You would be searching for the name of your intranet, so the hub, if you will. So you would search for that, select it, and then it would add it to the installed app. So you can see here, I've already have the hub added. And that means that by default, that app is installed when they install Teams, when they have Teams. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to come to my pinned apps and I want to go to add apps. Again, look for that and then pin it. And then once it will pin to the bottom, but I can go ahead and drag it up to the top. So it's the first one that they see up at the top of the apps in the app bar in Teams. And then I click save, and that is that. So we're going to talk about the dashboard, but just that, and I explained it in 26 minutes. It takes even less time to do yourself, but that right there is how you install and set up Viva Connections. So much, much, much easier. Wouldn't you say, Laura? From I don't know if you remember from the previous Power Hour, but
yeah, as long as it doesn't involve
like
PowerShell anymore, that's huge.
Yeah. So much easier than it used to be. And then just to show you what that looks like,
it is still a lot of steps,
from an end user. It is. Yeah, there's still a good bit of stuff to do, but at least it's something you can do by clicks, right? So let me go over to, bear with me 1 second. So this is Teams. I'm just using Teams in the browser because I have another Teams application for our chat over here. So Teams, you can see here, there's the hub. It is that icon. There's that outline icon. And you can see it sits above all my other apps. I click on it. It's going to show me my intranet home page, my home site. And then if I click on it here, then I see that navigation, that global navigation. I can see all of that right from here. Let's see. I think that you can also go to the website too if they want to. I'm just going to look at some of those things. We'll talk about the other Viva stuff in a second. All right. Let's see. Any questions? Let's see. Before I go in, I'm going to talk about the dashboard next, but I want to see if
can we set it as the default app when Teams open, or does it do this if it's at the top?
Yeah, it's pretty much what we just did. So the setting it so that it's installed by default is something that, like, when they install Teams and they can like use your tenant login information, then it will be there. So it will be at the top as well. So like that's kind of like the default thing, is that's what they'll land on.
So everything you did automatically makes it the default when you open Teams, and that's where people land. Because I know when I did it in the previous Power Hour a couple of years ago, now
when they land, no, I think it defaults to, doesn't it default to your, what does it default to when you
every time I go into Teams on that one that I set up a few years ago, it takes me straight to this the homepage that I set up.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it does the same for me. I can check. Let's see. Let's try to see if it's the same with the browser one. Sorry. There we go. Get a clean URL. Yeah, I think it's the same. It brought me here. So actually, I wonder if that's because I have the dashboard set up. It brought me to this by default. So that's like I have Viva though. I think that's what makes it different. So I have all the extra Viva, the paid Viva stuff. But I think by default it would, because if you don't have all that extra Viva, all those Viva things, I think by default it would take you here.
Okay, to answer your question, Lisa, she says, does this become default when they create a new team? This is unrelated to any individual team because this is just the default for all, like the whole Teams app itself. So no, it doesn't do anything related to any new teams. Like this itself is sort of its own app, so it's unrelated to any individual team, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's really just kind of Teams is still for like collaborating with small teams and projects and things like that, whereas this is like the whole point, like I was kind of talking about in the beginning, like the whole point is really just you have an intranet where you're using that to communicate with all your employees. So that's like you're pushing company wide information, it's news, it's HR information, it's IT information, it's all that kind of stuff that's meant for all employees. And this is kind of taking that and surfacing that intranet that you've worked so hard on. It's surfacing it seamlessly inside of the Teams experience, because we know with these organizations that have like fully adopted and used Teams, we know that a lot of their employees are probably going to be spending more time inside of Teams versus going into the browser to do things, right? Like if you're really using Teams, you're probably really using Teams. And so really it's just kind of taking that hard work we did with the intranet, that communication kind of portal that we really want them to be able to see too, and surfacing it in Teams too. So it's still a SharePoint thing. It's still built in SharePoint. It's a SharePoint site. It's a SharePoint page. All that stuff still has to happen. It's just this extra step of kind of like, let's surface it here too. And then that way, they can see it whether they're in the browser or whether they're here. And again, like you can do, like I talked about earlier, like I think you could do like page it, like they could have tabs inside of a team. You could have like tabs for pages or websites and stuff. But it's not quite as seamless as this is. So that's why this is kind of just an extra option. All right. So now let's talk more about the dashboard. We'll dig into that a bit more. And that's just a screenshot just showing that's where that you can see the icon up in that left-hand corner is the Teams app bar. Okay, so the dashboard has, I'm gonna get a drink real quick, sorry. So the dashboard has different cards. So it looks like I want to say web parts, because when you click on the plus sign, the little like window that pops up looks like the window that you get when you're adding web parts to a page. But they're not web parts. I know this. Microsoft, don't get mad at me. They're cards. So the card options that you have to add in the dashboard are these here. I'm sure that's another thing, just like the web parts and SharePoint they'll add on to. But these are the ones that you have out there right now. So the first one, and I'm going to show all of these too, and like so you can kind of see what they look like. So the first one is approvals. All this really does is you would add it, and then the user would have an ability to quickly get to their approvals. And it uses not the one in Power Automate. It's the same approvals, but it takes them to the Teams view of approvals. It's the same content, but it's just the Teams view. A lot of these apps you'll notice kind of like focus on Teams. So the approvals, they click that, it takes them over to the approvals view there. They can like look at whatever pending approvals they have, whether that they've sent or that they've received as an approver. So that's what that card does. We have assigned tasks. This will actually show them like of all their tasks across teams or in to do. It will show like you have this many past due and that kind of thing. And if they click on it, like in the actual card, it's going to show them like what they have past due. And then when they click on it, it's actually going to take them over into that like to do like overall app that kind of rolls up all their tasks, so they can kind of see things from all the different teams that they're a part of in that view. So that's kind of what that's for. There's the card designer. So that is adaptive cards. That is not something I'm going to go into detail today because it's not it's definitely like I started to look at it to see from a power user perspective. Again, if you're a developer, then dive right in, maybe you'll love it. But like if you're a power user, I always like to look at things from a power user perspective to see if there's ways we can use like the card designer. And this in this instance, like in this is like the cards that are specific to Viva Connections, but if we can use the card designer to do anything, kind of out of the box or with a power user mindset. And so I didn't really find, they do have like some templates out there. If you've dove into adaptive cards, you're probably familiar, like the general templates that they've had out there for a while. And a few of them do have, like, if you click the drop down, like in the setup out there, you'll see that a few of them do have Viva Connections as an option for like the style of the card. But it was just something that I was like kind of still struggling to kind of as a power user to try to figure out how I would utilize that. So what I did in the example that I gave, you'll see in the setup of it, it does have an area where you can add 2 links. And then you have a little drop down menu where you can do a couple different things. So I'll show you what that looks like. But really, I think if you're a power user, that's probably not going to be all that helpful. If you're a developer, then I think you could do incredible things with that. And there, I'll put another link. I did find a tutorial. I just remembered I found a tutorial that was definitely for a developer, but it goes into detail about how to set up these cards specifically. So the Viva Connections one. So if you are a dev, I will put that in our resources in a little bit. And then you can check that out if you're interested. And then after that, we have shifts. So if you're utilizing shifts, you can put a card on there that will show them their upcoming shifts, and then they can click on it and get brought over to shifts in Teams. There's also just one called Teams app, and these are just other things that they don't have like standalone cards for. So, just other apps in Teams. And of course, like if you have your own app that you've created in Teams, like that's something that you could utilize that to kind of showcase that app. We have Top News. So that's a built-in one that will automatically show news from across the organization. So any of the real popular news, it's going to showcase that in that little card. We have Viva Insights, Viva Learning, and Viva Topics, which I do have. So I'm going to show in case you have it as well. But those are all extra cost. So Viva Connections and the whole setup that you just saw me do, if you have normal licenses, that's included. So you don't have to worry about paying extra for that. But if you want Viva Insights and Viva Learning and Viva Topics, those cost extra. There's extra licensing for those. And I'll kind of show you what those are just in case if you're curious. And then finally, just like a quick link, you have a web link one where you can put a little, like an image and like a title and then like a link. So if you just want to have one of the cards linked to, an external website or a specific thing in SharePoint or your own application, you can set up one as a part of that as well. So like I said, it kind of like, it almost is like if I think of like an intranet, aside from the adaptive cards, which can do more, it really is kind of like a quick links in a way. I mean, they're all of these things are just like linking over to other resources. But some of them just have some neat features where you can kind of see, like before you even click, you can kind of see like a preview of information. So like I said, with shifts, I get like in the shifts one, I can see like what my next shift is, and then I could click it to go to shifts and see the whole thing. So it's just a little bit like, it's kind of like a little bit more of like a more robust, like kind of quick links that more focuses on Teams is the way that I would describe that. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. So go back over to the dashboard. And I'm going to close some of these other windows again. Like I said, I kind of have some connectivity issues sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the dashboard here. And so I have, as I mentioned, I'm going to pull this so I just make sure I don't forget any of them. I'm going to pull that slide over here for a second. So approvals, you'll notice that when I click add here, these are all of those things I just went through. These are the options. So one of them was approvals. And if I edit this, really there's not many options I could do with this. It's either going to be the medium size or I can do the large size, where I can, the medium size is just going to be like a little one link that takes me to the approval screen in Teams. Whereas the large size, I could actually create a request or go to request from here. So that's kind of what that is. And so that will be like just an easy way if you're using approvals a lot in your organization and if there's like constantly approvals going in and out, then that's just a good way to be able to access those quickly. Assign tasks here. So same thing, I can just change the size, but it will actually show me that I have currently in my committee meeting, or currently committee meeting is like my one past due task. And if I wanted to see more about that task or any other tasks I have, then I can click open and it will take me over there. And so let me go ahead. I'll just do those two so you can see. Get the homepage. So I'll go to like create requests and approvals, and you'll see it'll take me into Teams. And I'll let both of these kind of think through what they got to do in case they take a while. So they're both loading up those apps inside of Teams. And then we go back over to the dashboard. So then the card designer. So then what I did for my card designer is I created this card. So like the one I mentioned that's called web link, it's just one link. So like when you add a web link card here, you're just linking to one thing. So I decided to use my card designer, which is the adaptive card one, to go ahead and add something with two links, because that's pretty much the the most that I could do with it at this point. So I have this little card that says welcome to our modern workplace, and it has like a survey about the internet and then like a form to request training. And so I just added that here. And then this in the card designer here, this is where I can have a little bit more information. So I have different options for the layout here. I can have it just be the heading, I can have an image, or I can have a description, just depending on what I need. And then the size of the card can either be the medium, which is like half of the dashboard, or large, which takes up the full width. The title, I can decide whether it's an image or an icon. The heading, another custom image here. And then this is where I can get into the different things. So I can have like the overall card when you click on it, that can have a different action than the buttons that are on the card. And this is kind of where the adaptive card stuff comes in. But you'll notice that the actions here include go to link, go to Teams app, select media. So like there's a whole option there where the user can like upload something into the adaptive card. Select location from a map. And just display a specified or current location. So a lot of these ones, besides go to link and go to a Teams app, a lot of the other ones here, in order to really utilize those, that's where you have to get into the adaptive card stuff. So like you can do select media, but then where does the media go once it's selected? That's where you have to be a developer and kind of like build that part into it. And then the quick view as well. So the quick view is a neat feature where right now, if they click these links, these are just links, and it's going to take them over to like a Microsoft form. That's all this does. But the quick view is another piece, again, that's more on the developer side, where they can actually a user can click a button and a little like flyout pops out, and they can fill in information. So that's the whole quick view thing. And again, I'll get the documentation. Again, it's developer centric, but I'll get the link for that if you're interested. And then here I can have two buttons. So I have a primary button that goes to a form, like I was talking about, a survey, and then the secondary button goes to training. And then this gets into the JSON for like the quick view and stuff. So if you did have like a quick view template, this would be like where you could plug that JSON in and try that out. That starts getting over my head though. But that's the actual adaptive card designer, the card designer. This is just where you would probably put the information in if you were creating a custom adaptive card. So that's that. Then we have shifts. So shifts here, again, it's going to show me my next shift that I have inside of shifts, and I can go to details to see that. This is the Wikipedia search. That's just an app that was available in the Teams app. So this is the Teams app one. If I click edit here, then if I want to select a Teams app, I can basically just take that out, and then it will show me all the different apps that are available for me to add from Teams. So you can see there's like a Power BI one, there's Viva Learning, Viva Goals, Viva Insights. Those are the paid ones I was talking about. Bing News, polls. I can try adding the polls one in. And then I can just add that in. And basically all that does is it just takes the user over to the app in Teams. Like it's really just a link to an app in Teams. Like I did earlier with like the task. See what these things are saying retry. So let me try to see if they'll pull up from the approval and the task one I was trying to show. All right, we'll come back to that. So yeah, I can switch that to be a Teams app there. And then we had top news. So I don't have it displaying here, but there's top news, and that just pulls the top news in from your organization, kind of has a preview, and they can click on it. And then we also have the
Hey,
Viva
Joelle,
stuff.
I noticed one that when
Yeah.
I go into my own Viva Connections, it has I created an organizational chart power app and I had published it to Teams like a long time ago,
Yeah.
but it created that power app, like a link to it as part of the dashboard automatically. It's one of the
Oh,
tiles.
cool. Yeah,
So people
I was going to say
it.
too. I think I forgot to mention that, but Power Apps definitely that are published to Teams can show up as links in here for sure. So that'll like you can just like immediately like take them into a Power App right from this dashboard, which is pretty neat. Especially in the mobile experience, you know, because that it can be harder to navigate that. And then this loaded earlier when I clicked on the tasks earlier. This is what it brought me into, just in case you're not familiar. This is the overall app for tasks inside of Teams, and it rolls up from To Do as well as Planner and all your different teams. And then the approval one, I was trying to get it to load here. Yeah, there we go. And then this is your approvals. So this just shows me all of my approvals that are pending or that I sent. I can see those right from here. Let that load for a second. But yeah, good point about the Power App. That's another cool thing you can do is link directly to those in Teams. And then I'll talk about the Viva stuff last because I know not everybody has that. So the web link. So then I just also created here, I added a web link one and it's just a link. It's like a quick link. So I just have it linking to the payroll system, which is ADP in this example. And it says check your pay stubs here. And then I have a custom image and I can have a little card icon. And you can, I didn't mention that, but just like in links in your navigation or in other areas in SharePoint, you can target these cards to specific audiences. So I wanted to go ahead and mention that you have that ability. And then the last three that I'll show are the Viva. So these are paid. So we have Viva Learning, Viva Topics, and Viva Insights. So let me go ahead and publish that. So the Viva Insights here this is a praise option. It gives you like a Viva Insights has like a praise thing. So I can go ahead and click send praise. And then within Viva Insights, I can send praise to one of my coworkers. So I can say, Greg, congratulations. Congrats on the promotion. And I could just say where I want to do it, if I want to do it in just regular chat or actually directly in like one of the teams that we're in. So we're in this empowered team together.
Hey,
So
Joelle, Anne says, can you talk about the search experience from Viva Connections within MS Teams in this session? Is that related or is that something that...
Yeah, I think the search, it just takes you back to the SharePoint search is my understanding. If you're in the Viva Connections thing, I believe that's what it does.
Yeah, because that search box at the top is going to be at the top if you're in Teams. It's also going to be at the top if you're in SharePoint. And theoretically, it would give you the same set of results wherever you search from, right?
Yeah, I think it is the search box is like the Teams one, but it's gonna pull results for like anything that you have access to really, and then you can like let's see, look for something on here. Let's see. So yeah, it looks like the search experience might be. I would have thought that it had the link over to the organization thing, but I actually don't see that. Yeah. So this is like Josh SharePoint News posted. Yeah, so it looks like the search experience here. That's something that I actually haven't looked at yet, so I need to see if there is something else we need to do to have that show this SharePoint search experience. Because right here, it's just showing me the Teams one. So I have to look into that a little bit. So I'm not quite sure if there is a way to surface like the specific like the SharePoint search that we
Yeah,
would
I think,
have in the
and in the
browser
MS
directly
Teams
either.
desktop app, you're going to have the same search experience as you would searching for anything in Teams. Even if you see a SharePoint page on the screen, your search experience in the Teams bar will be the same. You're not going to have two different search boxes if you are in Teams and you can see a SharePoint page on the screen, right? You're just going to have the one.
No.
So there isn't really anything
Yeah, it's just gonna be the one at
different.
the top. Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
this search box. I don't know. Again, like it might be because we're in the browser version, but
I mean, you are right. If
this one
somebody
isn't
is
showing
in
me anything.
SharePoint and they're searching using the SharePoint search box, that is a different search result experience than if you're in Teams and you do a search. But I think both of those are unrelated to whether you have Viva connections in place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the SharePoint, like they're talking about the SharePoint search is local to SharePoint. Yeah, it's interesting. Might be something I need to look into that a bit more to see. That's a good question. All right, so let me just finish up real quick, and then we can kind of circle back on that too if we want. So yeah, the Viva Insights, I can go ahead and send praise to a coworker. The Viva Learning, if I click this, it's going to take me over to the Viva Learning app inside of Teams, where they have all of that training, all of those training resources available. Microsoft provides some of that, and then you can also add your own in there. And then Viva Topics. So if I'm using Viva Topics right here, I can see the 3 topics that are the most relevant to me. So any of the things like whether it's like pages I've looked at or documents I've worked on, I'm going to see any of the terms from there that are most relevant, and then I can easily go to those if I'd like to. Or I can just go to the overall topic center and see like what are the most popular terms if I wanted to. I can see that as well. So they have like 2 different cards built in for Viva Topics. And that is it. The only other thing for the dashboard is that once you have it created, my screen's weirdly like zoomed in right now, but you can see you can add it as a web part. They do recommend that you only add that as like a vertical web part. That's like some of the recommendations I saw, I think from just a display
So that's a
perspective.
little
I do notice
confusing. So
this
the
one.
dashboard is a web part, but then the cards in the dashboard are not web parts, they're cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the little screen where you add them looks just like the web part adding, the web part panel or whatever. So yeah, fun. But yeah, so that here you can add it as a web part on your site. If you didn't add it as a web part, then it would be available in the Teams app still. So like if they in the mobile app, I should be clear. So if they have Teams on their phone and you have Viva like connections enabled and all that stuff, and you've created a dashboard, they would see that from the Teams mobile app experience. Even if you didn't have it like surface on the page somewhere. And then let's see. I think the last piece here. Let's see. One more thing. So we have one more web part. These web parts is always kind of like hit and miss if like people find these things useful. But there is a feed for Viva Connections, and it's kind of like, I mean, there's been other stuff like this before, so I feel like it's not that great. That's not that different. But it's kind of a automatic roll up of news. It also pulls from like Yammer posts if your organization's using Yammer. And they say stream as well, even though I know that there's some, I think stream is kind of like up in the air, I guess, right now. I know like the web part looks like it's the web part that's in SharePoint looks like it's going away. Laura, do you know anything about that? Like the stream stuff?
Yeah, they're getting rid of Stream as a separate app, and every videos just need to be in SharePoint or OneDrive now. So
yeah, so I don't know when they said stream here, if they mean like that stream, the old one, or if they
yeah,
mean
they're
like here,
probably
the way
just
they're
one of
doing
those
things. I'm
things
not
that they
sure.
need to phase out.
Yeah, so that it mentions stream, but that I'm gonna put a question mark by stream. But definitely for the news that you create in Yammer, there is this feed that's automatically getting generated with that information, and it's specific to the user. And there's no settings for this. This is another web part, by the way, and there's no settings or anything like that. It's just like one of those like automatically curated web parts. And it's called Feed for Viva Connections, and you can add it to your homepage as well. But just keep that in mind that it's kind of like similar to other things we've had in the past where it's like rolling that content up and curating it for them. It's just one of the specific ones that come with Viva Connections. And there's not much to do with that other than add it to the page. You'll see once you have enabled, once you've kind of like added Viva Connections, you'll see that if I click on here sorry, it's doing the weird stuff again. If I click here to look for feed, you'll see feed for Viva Connections. And there's also like my feed, which is another kind of similar thing. So you have that option. My feed is not Viva Connection, so that's one's built in. All right. I think that is it for just like the general kind of like gist of installing and what it takes and what it includes. So let's go ahead and see if there's any questions. So we were talking about that search box. I might have to do a search box on the home site page. Yeah, with PMP, there is like an option for a search box web part. See PMP Modern Search. Yeah, they're talking about Stream. Yeah, Stream is a little that whole thing.
Hey, I'm gonna switch it back over to our faces with like on like the intro thingy.
Yeah. Sure.
Just switch yours over to just your face instead of your slide.
All right, let me merge.
Oh, we're talking. There we go.
There we go.
Oh wait.
Hey. Is it me?
There.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Any other questions that we didn't answer? I'm trying to see if I've missed any.
I don't think so.
Yeah, the search experience, that is weird. It's not something that like I had like played with specifically yet.
Doesn't surprise me.
It is weird to me that like, yeah, it's not. And I am in the browser now, so I would have to look at Teams in the desktop app and to see, because I have desktop app over here with you guys, the chat, and then I'm using the browser version for the demo. But yeah, that's a little strange. I feel like the search experience, I feel like I've heard it mentioned too, so I wonder if there's something I'm missing. I might have to go look for that. Oh, let me grab, if anybody is a developer, let me go ahead and grab the adaptive card thing I mentioned for the Viva, because there was like a whole like detailed like demo about that. So bear with me 1 second. I'll get that pulled out for you all. Yeah, it's just talking here. I gotta find where that link was. I'm just looking at that. Is there any updates or anything, Laura?
You're talking about that special page all about adaptive cards?
No, this was a tutorial I came upon. That's literally a tutorial about adaptive cards for Viva Connections. It's not like the general Viva Connection. It's not the general adaptive card thing. Like, I know that website, but this is like one that's like a specific tutorial that was about Viva Connections. I might have to just go through and look in my history, because I was looking at it a couple days ago. It's one of those things I should have saved, but because I was like, I don't know adaptive cards. That's too developer-y for me.
I just put a create a Viva Connections dashboard and add cards link to the resources. So
yeah, that's like just the general. That's like just
and you can always add it to the resources in a few minutes when even after we hang up.
Yeah, I'll look for it later and I'll add it in.
Cool.
All right, that's it.
Wow, that was a lot. That was you didn't think it was going to last an hour, Joelle. Thanks everybody for coming.
It goes by so quickly. Yeah, thanks. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah. Y'all check out our iwmentor.com. Click on schedule at the top to see when the next power hour is going to be and just when our classes are. And thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you next time. Over and out. Thanks, Joelle.